Welcome back to another episode of the Mancave podcast. Air horn me. We'll see how that turns out. The whole audio is gonna be fucked up.
Right,
we chopped and screwed our voices all over again. You remember that?
Yeah.
The
first test we ever ran. Should we play it? Should we let people know what it sounded like and what it looked like?
That's up to you. See how much work that takes editing wise.
It's easy, just slip it in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You see, I say it in the most innocent way possible, and you're the one
I
that takes it.
already knew how you were gonna try and spin it. So
all I'm saying,
I think the audience also knows.
You just slip it in, get it nice and wet.
The type of
see.
Yes.
I didn't even want to take it there. I was just actually talking about the editing aspect.
No, you weren't. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we wanted to do something a little bit lighter today. George and I started in October. I guess that's 4 or 5 months then. We've been podcasting.
Yeah. And I learned a lot in a small amount of time, which you have to do.
Yeah.
You know,
in order to grow.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this has been a climb. So today we kind of wanted to talk about how it started versus how it's going, and share some of the things that we've kind of picked up along the way. Fuck my Italian. Along the way, Super Mario. Which I'm not looking forward to seeing. So
no,
nah. We got fucking
Deadpool
playing. That's not Deadpool.
No.
That's Star-Lord.
Star-Lord, yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't really change his accent at all.
He's
just being like, now I'm Chris Pratt, but I'm also Mario.
I'm also fucking
It's
not
me,
Italian.
Mario.
I guess they were trying to keep him from getting canceled. It's like, oh, you got a dude that's not Italian playing an Italian character.
I guess, but just get an Italian guy if it's that serious.
Can you name an Italian actor? Do you remember that? Remember you
Johnny Depp. Is he? I don't know what he is.
Yeah, you don't even fucking know. And I don't know. So
I just know I've seen him in a suit once.
Oh, shit. So that makes him Italian.
Yeah, they love suits.
Yeah, but along the way, George and I have learned a lot about podcasting, business stuff, content creation. So we wanted to talk about that, as well as some of the challenges that we've faced starting the podcast and getting it to where it is now, as well as some of the kind of crazier things that we've experienced doing this. Like, and now I guess we can start there, since that's kind of like one of the easier things. Like, we share clips and stuff on social media and get people talking about their story, and sometimes like that shit gets a little wild. So this dude was back when we recorded our episode of The War on Men, we were talking about things like child support and alimony, that kind of stuff. And there was a dude on our IG who posted about how his wife tried to kill his 2 daughters, and she was like also mentally ill. And instead of her getting what they call 302, which is basically like when they take a person who's not mentally well, they take them into sort of like this crisis center, like a hospital or something, and they commit them, essentially. They keep them from being able to go out and interact with anybody else, so that they're not doing harm to themselves or anybody on the street. And instead of them doing that, basically they gave her the kids, which was like ass backwards. Yeah. And he had to end up spending like all his money fighting it in court. And when I heard that, I was just like, bro, like, I did not expect for this to turn into like a Dr. Phil type of thing. But I guess there's so much crazy shit going on in the world. Like, you never really know what you're going to get, especially on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, once you make the decision to make clips or create a podcast and share it with the world, you're inviting everybody in. But you put it out there, and the algorithm chooses who sees it and who doesn't.
Right.
You have no control over that. So yeah, you're literally sharing your thoughts with absolutely anybody and everybody, and saying, hey, comment on whatever I just said. Give me your opinion on what I said.
Right.
Tell me how I'm wrong about what I said. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that, you have to be ready for if you're kind of going into the content creation space, especially if what you're doing involves conversational engagement. Like if you're doing video games, it's kind of like, oh, you just talk about the video game.
Right.
You know, if you're talking about music, that can also be a little, but if you're having real life conversations like we try to do on this podcast, depending on the guest and the topic that we choose, some of it can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial, yeah. Right? And the people that are like, if you say something that disagrees with somebody else, oh man, are they going to let you know? And they're going to tell you everything about themselves in order to like guilt trip you or tell you why you were wrong. But one thing that I learned is some people, like, they don't know us. Right. So when they comment either like an aggressive way or just negative tone. They're ready to argue.
Yeah.
And it's dependent on how you respond to that message is going to navigate how the conversation goes.
Yeah.
Because early on, you know this, if somebody commented something.
I'm sitting here thinking about it.
I would just match energy.
Yeah.
Right? But like, you want to hit me with some bullshit. Yeah. I'm going to hit you back with some bullshit. Yeah. And the conversation is going to go nowhere. Now we're just seeing who can insult the other person the most.
Right.
But then after a while, I was like, no one's going to follow this. Right? Like, if the person that I'm arguing with is the only person that's seeing my content and I'm pushing them away further, they're not going to hit follow and we're not going to grow. So after a while, somebody would comment something and I would try to be like, oh, interesting take on it, right? And be like, I understand where you're coming from, but try to understand where I'm coming from this clip. This was what I was referring to. And then that's going to kind of let the other person know I'm not here to fight. You know, the point of this podcast was because we wanted to have conversations with people. Right. And the way that I'm deciding to handle your aggressive ass fucking comment is to engage in the conversation instead of, you know,
bashing you back.
Yeah. Like recently, with the clip that I shared about where I was saying, oh, gun owners can't wait to use their guns, right? This guy came at me and was like, like, oh, it's not all gun owners. You sound super like insensitive or, this is a stupid thing to say, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I was like, to be fair, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said all gun owners, but the responsible gun owners need to understand that there are also a very large amount of irresponsible gun owners.
Right.
And I feel like gun people just want to throw that out the window because the irresponsible ones are the ones that are on the news that are constantly talked about. So, they don't want to be associated with those people, but they need to understand that those are the people that are being seen and the people that are being heard and being platformed everywhere.
Right.
So we need the people that are responsible gun owners to come forth and talk poorly about the irresponsible ones and, hold them accountable the same way that a lot of people like men have to hold men accountable.
For dumb shit.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I feel like that's not happening.
No.
Right? So it's kind of what I was telling him. And we kind of have a conversation back and forth. And after a while, he said, because I did tell him, I was like, I would choose my words wisely moving forward. Like we just started doing this. Obviously we have a lot to learn. Like we said, we're putting information out into the world and telling people, hey, what do you think about what I said? I have to be careful about how I word things.
Right.
Which is what I told him. And then, he responded with, I see you guys are very new to this. You don't have a large following yet. But the fact that you're willing to have this conversation and take into consideration what I said speaks volumes. And he was like, and you guys just gained yourself a subscriber. And he subscribed.
Oh, I'm about to cry.
And I was like, oh, that's what it is. All right. I was like, not, October George would have just been going back and forth with this guy. 6 months in, 5 months in, whatever we're in now. Yeah. You have to adapt. Right. Like I said, the goal is to grow the channel, not to push people away. You want to pull them in. So that's one thing that I learned is you don't always have to fight everybody that comes your way. Even if they come at you that way, like this is the internet.
Word.
People are always like 9 out of 10 times maybe are going to be just starting off aggressive because they feel attacked by what you said. So you need to let's talk about it first.
And plus, it's like you said, it's the internet. So people are just carrying around this energy sometimes. Like you're charged up. And so he could have come from another video where it said people who own guns have small dicks. Like 90% of gun owners have penises that are 3 inches or less.
Wow.
And it could be true. You never know. But so he comes onto this clip and he sees us talking about it. And he's like, oh, here they go, trying to say I got a little dick. And he's just going at you. It's like we can talk about things. We can disagree about things and not tear each other down. Like, and that's kind of where I think our podcast is taking, like, the people who watch and follow or whatever and comment. Because like a lot of times, like aside from on TikTok when they be getting crazy with the comments, all this racial shit that they be going in. So aside from that, like I generally, when I engage with people who are on our comment section, I try to like, like you said, pose a different point of view or, ask questions to figure out why this person feels how they feel about the clip and see if we can't both learn something from it. And then maybe we can use it later on. Because like when we were talking about, I don't even know how to word it without YouTube like fucking shadow banning us. Actual assaults. I don't know.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about. But we posted a clip about our first times having, sex with women, whatever.
Yeah.
And then there were a couple of women who were in the comments just like up in arms. And I'm just like talking to George. I'm like, yo, what the hell? Like, what? We weren't even talking about anything crazy. But then from their perspective, they're sharing like why these people may be acting in this way. And it's because of these things that they're dealing with. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I do remember our conversation where it was like you were telling your story about it, and they made their own like interpretation of what happened.
Yeah.
And we were like, why? And it was multiple women on different platforms saying the same thing, like creating a backstory that isn't real.
Right.
And we were like, why the fuck are they doing this? All of them. We're like, not everything has to come from a place of like a traumatic experience.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we looked up the numbers and it was like some crazy shit.
One out of 9 women.
1 out of 9 women experienced that assault, and 1 out of every 53 men experienced that assault. So the numbers are crazy different. And when you look at that number, you're like, okay, that kind of puts it into perspective for us because that's not a number that I knew.
No, I didn't either. I couldn't even have guessed that it was that high.
Yeah. So, it puts it into perspective where we're like, okay, that's probably where they're coming from.
Yep.
Because the internet and obviously is so infinite that those people that commented that probably have experienced some shit.
Yes.
And what we said triggered it. And now they're like, well, you guys don't even know what you're talking about because of this, and that.
Right.
Though that may not have been your reality. Right. It's their reality.
Yeah.
So they're now sharing it in a weird way where it's not like, oh, this is what happened to me, but this is what happens.
Yeah, that would actually be a way better way to address the conversation. Yeah. Like, okay, well, this happened to me when I was 13 or 14, whatever. And as a result, I started doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing that, I guess that takes like a certain level of vulnerability too. Like, do you want to really share something that's so
this is a random podcast.
Hurtful? Yeah.
I don't want to put that on a comment.
Exactly.
So the safest way to do it is,
lash out.
Men with podcasts are the bane of humanity,
quote,
which
unquote.
is an actual comment we got, which is hilarious. Because, it's one of those things. And then it comes down to the content that you decide to push forward.
Yeah.
Me and you made the decision that, like, we want to have conversations with different, people with different perspective. Me and you don't agree on a lot of this, like with everything.
Right.
But we create the content and we push it out there so that people know that conversations like this exist and different point of views exist. And because we don't agree doesn't mean that we can't be friends and we can't hang out and they can't be like it can't be cordial, right? Is that the word?
Yeah, that's correct.
There you go.
Look at you.
So, it depends on the content that you're choosing, and knowing who you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody, obviously, do your research when you're trying to start a podcast. Understand what you're trying to put out and who you're trying to reach. Everybody says, it has to be a niche, because if you do it too broad, then, you're not going to be able to keep certain audiences. You might grab their attention, but to keep them is the biggest thing. I can't be like, hey, today we're talking about movies. And then the next episode is like, hey, so how do you make money? And then the third episode is like, did you go to the gym this week? Like, it just doesn't follow any kind of pattern.
Yeah.
Right. To where the people are like, oh, I'm not going to keep coming back to this. I liked one episode, but the 17 after had nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah. That's actually a good point. Do you think that's something we took into consideration when we launched?
I think so it's different to take it into consideration and to know that it's something to do, and then to execute it properly.
Yeah.
Right. The challenge of it is, you're forced to stay consistent.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing. They need to know that you're coming out regularly, when to find you, where you are, when to expect a show.
Yeah.
Right. And when you are put into that position that you have to be that consistent. And, we had an episode with a therapist, and then we would have an episode with like a personal trainer. And then we would have an episode, this is like, there are constant episodes where we have conversations with people that can share information to help other people.
Like self-improvement.
Yeah. But what happens is we can't always guarantee those guests. We can't always guarantee those conversations.
Right.
Because it's hard to get people here. You have to convince them. We're a very small podcast right now. So to tell somebody, hey, you want to come on my podcast, sure, they probably hear that 100 times from whoever else they know that starts a podcast. Right. So it's hard to keep that consistency with the content. Consistency, you were just putting stuff out.
Yeah.
Right. So I think me and you try to be as consistent as possible. Like the episode that we recorded, that'll come out. This one will come out. So the one that came out last week with our financial advisor is something we try to stay consistent on.
Right.
Right. To keep the same type of content coming in. But we can't guarantee it.
No.
And then there's also the struggle of getting our personality out there.
Yep.
And sometimes if it's just me and you, and we want to have a conversation that's a little sillier and not as, intense, then, we should be able to do that. But the struggle with doing that early on is, again, nobody knows us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And what's the point? Okay.
Nobody wants, it's like I said it before. It's like, if you're nobody and nobody knows you, they don't like you, they don't know who you are, why are they going to give a fuck about what your top 5 cereals are? Like, I'm not going to make a podcast where, oh, my favorite candy is this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because no one cares. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you have the same candy that I like. I don't know who you are.
That's actually a great piece of advice I think that other podcasters should take is, what are you trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. Because unless you're Brad Pitt or fucking Jonathan Majors and you're just coming on and talking about, how many times you got your balls licked in 3 days, like, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Like, there's a ton of people in the world to talk to listen to. Why are we going to listen to you?
Yeah.
Like,
and
what's the draw?
The biggest challenge for anybody starting a podcast like us is podcast has blown up so much that it's not just nobodies.
Like you said, it's the new mixtape.
It's the new mixtape.
Yeah.
Everybody got one. So, but now you have your A-list celebrities or B-list celebrities that are starting podcasts.
Right.
And they're like, oh, fuck, they have a podcast. And now they're already, they got their audience off rip.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for them. They don't even have anything to talk about.
Right.
They can, like you said, they can just go in there and be like, oh, this morning I went to the gym. They can just go about and talk about their day-to-day schedule, and people are going to listen because they're a fan of them.
Yep. And they're trying to see, like, oh, is there something I don't know about this person? Yeah, yeah.
And more, every fucking day, every week, somebody else comes out of the work and like, oh, I have a podcast now too. And it's like, yeah, that's everybody's gonna have one.
Bro, like I'm a huge Bill Burr fan. I've watched all his stand-up stuff over the last like 5 or 6 years, which isn't a lot, but I mean it's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough.
You're a fan.
Exactly. Yeah. But then I didn't know he had the
Monday morning podcast.
Yeah, was it the Friday afternoon Monday?
Yeah, he does 2 a week.
Yeah, long ass title, bro.
Yeah. The first one that comes out on Monday is Monday morning podcast, and then the other one is Thursday afternoon,
right?
The Monday morning.
Yeah. So I didn't even know he had a podcast, and I'm like, shout out to Bill Burr. But
he's an OG in the podcast world, though,
bro. But I for some reason, I do not enjoy his podcast, bro.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like I like him when it's like in space with other people, because I can see like clear as day the difference in like somebody who's made it, but still kind of like a little rough around the edges, just giving it to you raw, don't really give a fuck. Like I appreciate that more when I see him on like this Hollywood stage against people that, oh, Charlie, well, I got this gown from Dolce and Gabbana and these earrings are from whatever. Like, and he's just come on, my daughter thinks I'm an asshole. It is what it is. Like, but yeah, no, shout out to Bill Burr.
Yeah, I mean, that's another, like, if you think about him, like, he's been doing podcasts since like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Like,
I saw he's an OG.
He's an OG in the podcast, where my man used to just like record on his phone.
Yeah.
And, if it was at the airport, and now that's a podcast.
Wow.
Yeah. So OG for sure. But no, I love his podcast because it's just like, I'm a fan of him.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he just fucking pops off on his classic Bill Burr way, and it's just funny.
What do you think you've learned about yourself, aside from the fact that you can bash people on the internet quite effectively? But shout out to you also for recognizing that you needed to grow in that space and become a different kind of like administrator, I guess, because that's essentially what we are. We're admins on our own shit. What do you think you've learned about yourself?
I think one thing that I learned about myself is like the ability to multitask is something that I didn't know that I could do as well as I do. All right, like,
do it great.
I have I have a full-time job. I have 2 kids, a wife, and then we're doing this. Right, so being able to time manage is like you have to be able to do it. Because and it comes to like planning with my wife and planning with her family, because it all comes to scheduling.
Yeah.
So I have to be able to schedule every week with you, with her, work. When do I get out of work? And also another thing is how much effort I'm willing to put in for this, because you have to actually believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. To come out to have a newborn, and you lose obviously hella sleep, and then go to work, and then punch in 9 hours, and then come here, and then set up, and then give 110% when you came in at 70%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like you learn that about yourself. Like, damn, I didn't even know that I can push myself in this way.
Yeah, and that's huge, because I feel like a lot of people just kind of coast on like 60% of their ability or their energy or whatever. I find myself doing that a lot, and sometimes it's like kind of annoying, because it's like, yo, I could have actually done so much more today, but I just kind of like did everything that I needed to do and left the other stuff off the table, and I can get a head start on tomorrow, and now I'm a head start on the next day and the next day, and I'm 3 days ahead of my week for next week. So I definitely agree with you. I never really knew that I would enjoy doing this as much as I do. I think, shout out to my real estate training and experience, I've gotten good at hearing people, not just listening, but hearing people, hearing what they're saying, and being able to ask like high quality questions, and helping steer conversations effectively.
Yeah.
So that the episodes aren't just kind of like, well, where did you go to school? Well, where did this? Like, now we're kind of like finding out things about people that they may have not just willingly told. Like you said, mentioned Rob, a financial advisor. I could see that he was like extremely comfortable with us, and he thought about dropping his client's name. He's like, well, maybe I shouldn't. But yeah, I
that's
I
the
enjoy
difference
that.
between interviewing somebody and having a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. If the person that we're talking to feels like they're being interviewed, right? No one goes into an interview excited. No one leaves an interview excited.
Yeah.
Right. But a conversation is fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between that.
Right.
Like, and so you've developed the skills to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because you can hear what they're saying and you can ask a question that takes that conversation further without, transitioning the question or getting more out of them. But that's the difference between the two.
You want to know what I learned about you?
What?
You're actually like a great leader. Like, you come in, you handle business, you're confident, and you give me like the courage to come in here and do this shit as well, because like I knew that you already had the experience. So in a way, I was like, man, like George's already doing this. Like he already knows how to maneuver this shit. I'm just gonna follow his lead. And you didn't let me down yet. Like, you come in, you come in, you handle business, shit goes well. Sometimes we have hiccups, but that's life, whatever. But no, I definitely appreciate you going on this journey with me and helping me develop a new skill and a new passion for something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important too, right? So if you're considering to start a podcast with somebody, you need to know that person, all right? You need to have trust in that person. And they need to fill in the blanks that you're not able to.
Yeah.
Right? Because let's say that you're coming into it, it's not, the conversational part of it. All right. So I can trust that, like we said, even when we first started, of getting our notes together. Never anything that I was good at. Getting my thoughts on paper and then following it as a script. God, I can't do it. All right. That was something that you were good at. And you taught me how to do it. And now me and you on a regular basis, on a week-to-week basis, we construct the notes or a script that we're going to follow for that episode.
Yeah.
So you brought that to the table. And then I brought, the technological information, right? Oh, what mic we should be using, what equipment we should get, the cameras, how to use it, the editing. Then the comfortability that you have to have when having a conversation. But it's a give and take.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I think another important thing that goes into making a podcast is knowing your equipment.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was able to bring that to the table just because I used, when I was doing my own thing on YouTube, is like, trial and error on what works and what doesn't work, or what gives you the quality that you think you need to be giving. But just like we just started using the GoPro.
Yeah.
Right. One thing that I learned, and there's no way of knowing until you use it. Like the GoPro chops up the footage.
Oh, for real?
In like 11-minute increments.
Okay.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm thinking, they recorded for 11 minutes and then stopped recording.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It's all there. It's just now I have to piece it together for whatever reason. But, then this camera, right? Knowing what's the difference between, or how does it record in 4K versus 1080p or the color grading?
Yeah.
Like you need to know all that stuff if you care about how the quality is being put out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's something that I've been like ignorant about even before we started. And I still don't have a great kind of understanding of everything. But watching you use this shit, I realize this is not something that you can just pick up and do. Like, you really got to study this shit.
Yeah, I mean, anybody could have... Did that baby crying? No, somebody needs to shut him up. That's my son, by the way. But anybody could start a podcast.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the internet that we're in, the beauty of, being able to just do it, right? But what's going to separate you from the million of other people that have the podcast?
That was one of the first things people mentioned was the quality. Mm-hmm. The quality of our shit was just so much better.
Yeah, because we put the thought into it. We put the effort into it. We knew what we wanted to give.
Yeah.
And we got it.
Right.
Like that's what it needed to be if we were gonna do it. We weren't gonna try to cut corners.
Nah.
You know.
And I look at some of the people we follow or some of this other stuff on the internet, and it's like you said, like if it doesn't look good, I don't want to watch it. And I never realized that until we started recording podcasts. It's like now I'm hyper conscious about like stuff like lighting that I never thought was a fucking thing. And people tapping on the table and the fucking mic picking up everything. So it's like, okay, I see it now, and I see why it makes such a huge difference. So for people who are creating podcasts or anything on YouTube, whatever kind of content you make, you got to consider everything. Like you have to consider where you're recording, because we started out in another office, which is basically like the fucking newsroom. Do you have the picture of that? Maybe you can post it and see.
Yeah, I have the picture. I have the video.
Oh my god! Yeah, our
how it
audio
looked and how it sounded.
fucked.
Yeah, it was horrible. But then that goes into planning.
Yeah,
right. Like because we wanted it to be a certain level when it came out.
Right.
That we ran tests beforehand.
Right.
To get familiar with the equipment.
Yeah.
So that we know how it'll look and it'll sound when we officially release.
And that was intentional. That wasn't like we just kind of like, oh, let's just kind of fuck around. No, It was like, yo, we need to like come in, record some trial episodes, maybe do some like intro stuff, and see how that comes out and make sure it's good quality.
Yeah, I mean, if you record one time and never having ever recorded before, and then put it out, it's like, what are the odds that came out perfect or
probably
good?
99 out of 100.
It's like, no, you need to be able to, and that's when it comes to not being able to or not being afraid to fail either. That's like a big thing when it comes to not just podcasting, but anything that you're trying to do is the failure is what's going to teach you what you're doing wrong and how to correct it.
You know, what's actually crazy is usually when I go into something like the credit repair business or real estate, usually I study for long periods of time before, because I'm just one of those people, like I would much rather know everything I can possibly about what it is I'm about to do before I do it. With this, I leaned so much on you. I was like, George has already done this. So where can I provide value? Oh, I'm good at networking. I can bring guests. Oh, I'm good at like organizing or structuring things. Maybe not great at it, but I'm good enough to make this be something of substance. I can do that. I can, provide the space. So instead of me trying to like step on your toes and get in the way of what it is that you do, I just kind of filled in the gap. And I'm proud of myself, because when you talk about fear of failure, I think that perfectionist mentality is sometimes it causes people, especially me, to procrastinate. Because you're like, yo, I want this to be perfect. I want this to be perfect. And then you're dragging it on and on and on. And then you never actually even get to go through with it because you done put it off so much. Now other shit is in the way. And then you can't get to it.
Yeah, like what? Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone. Right. It's just, there's always going to be, what you want to do when you're creating something like a podcast is you want your next episode to be better than your previous episode. That's why me and you have so many conversations about, should we start using this camera, or should we, set the lights up this way, or like, oh, maybe this camera angle was weird. Let's try it. The first episode that we were just watching, the camera was too low and too far to the left there.
Yep.
And we had the laptop right dab in the fucking smack of it.
Yep.
And it's just like, damn, we didn't catch it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, it's not.
But because we did that, we knew what to look for and how to set it up for the next episode.
Right.
And then the following episode, what needs to be improved on that one? The lighting on this one wasn't that good. Right. Third episode, we got to make sure the light, you know what I mean? So every time that you're releasing something, find a way to improve on it for the next episode.
100%. So we have these overhead lights, which are cool. What are these standing lights that we have now? Because these were a game changer.
Yeah, these they're just, what are they called? They're called Great Video
Maker.
Yeah, so they're just, like you said, they're just stand-in lights. that we got off of Amazon, but it's a must.
Yeah, because this makes like a total difference. It feels super professional in here, and the camera looks great.
Yeah.
Now that we have this light.
Yep. Because you want to be able to see the people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
And it's also like we have a black backdrop here.
Yeah.
So without proper lighting, it just looks like an abyss. And it doesn't really look too good.
Yeah. Word.
So, but no, what I was gonna show you, and it might not show it on the pens, but my first ever YouTube video that I made, and then the last one that I made, which I haven't made a video on YouTube for my gaming shit in, like over a year, but just so that you can see the difference. All right.
You look young as shit in this. Like you're wearing makeup.
I aged hella in 2 years.
Nah, this is just the facial hair. You got the fresh cut here. Was that intentional? You're like, I'm gonna get my hair cut for the video.
I don't think so. I think it just happened.
Yeah, I don't think we think enough about that kind of stuff either.
But the intro was horrible.
It's
like so bad. And then you can see like the camera angle. Like the camera is so big.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the first episode or first video I ever recorded.
That game was weird as fuck.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it. I'm not smart enough to do it. So the intro already dramatically better.
Yeah.
The ducking of it is what it's called. So the music of it is not overwhelming like the first video. The editing got a lot better.
Camera is not like zoomed in on your Adam's apple.
Yeah. Because everything that you do, you have to take into consideration for the next episode. If you're recording and a year in, your content hasn't changed either in the visual, the audio, or the quality.
Yeah.
And you probably don't care enough about it to improve on it.
And that the fact that you just said that speaks volumes about you as a person, but also you as like the businessman, because that's something that literally I take into consideration every day I wake up. It's like with my real estate stuff, or even my credit repair business. How can I improve on what I'm already doing? Because no, we're not like selling a product here, but we want to make sure that our customers, or our viewers, or subscribers, or whatever, are getting something of value out of what we're doing. And that's always what it's going to be is, can I make this a better experience for whoever is working with me or watching what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
I don't know. I mean, obviously we're not talking like we're professionals here.
I'm a professional. I don't give a fuck what you do.
There's so much more to learn. There's so much that we need to grow on. But when you're doing this, like you said earlier, like we're admins, we're the editing team, we're the marketing team, right? We're the publishers, we're the fucking producers. Yep. Like we have to wear all of those hats for this to be a thing. So how you need to, and then you have to learn all of those things. So you have to learn how to be the marketing team and the editor and the producer, and then. Because it's all or nothing, you have to learn how to do it efficiently. You have to learn how to do it right. Yeah. So you have to teach yourself. You have to look up like countless either videos on YouTube on how to do it or reading articles on how to do it, putting in the time. And then when it comes back to like time management, like if you have your family, you have a full-time job, you go to the gym regularly, where do you find the time to watch videos on how to improve your editing or how to market or how to, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it comes down to the management.
Did you think we would be, we would have as much success as we had so quickly?
No. I did, like I said, when we released the trailer of it, I was like, it got pretty well received. But it doesn't sound like much for people who have millions of subscribers. Yeah. But for us to have just now over 200 in 5 months, I think it's pretty good.
I agree.
Considering we have, again, 0 following prior. Right. I had did YouTube by myself for about a year and a half and capped at 50 subscribers. So the two are already dramatically different because I think I was just a different mind state for this versus that.
How so?
That one was a hobby,
Okay.
right? That I was like, oh, it'll be fun to do. This one, I believe, can become something that can be more than a hobby.
Yeah.
So the effort that I'm putting into it is different.
Yeah. I agree. I always I don't want to say I always knew that it would be as good as it is, but I knew that I was not going to let it fail. And I also knew that I had the right person to partner up with. I was like, oh, George fucking knows this shit. And the power of having two people working on it is, number one, we have two different ways of thinking that we can apply to, the structure and the episodes, whatever you want to do and talk about. But also we're tapping into two different networks, two different like people, spheres of friends, so it broadens our reach. And not to say like everybody I know is watching or following the podcast like they should be. Fucking hint, hint. But it increases our chances. You know what I'm saying? So like if you got 15 friends that you're really tight with and I got 15, now we have 30 people who could potentially be watching the podcast. So that I say that to say like if you're starting something, whether it's podcast or whatever, like lean on the people that are close to you to support you, because if you can get them to support you and believe in you, then you can get anybody to support you, because the people that are close to you is sometimes the hardest motherfuckers to convince, because they see you as George, the dad, not the podcaster. They don't care.
Yep. And once that changes, it's like, oh, like they now see that there's potential in it.
Yeah.
Then for sure, because like you said, they already have this idea of you. They know you.
Right.
If you were able to change that in their heads, then that's something special. Yeah.
Fire. It's like even with my little brother, he's a rapper. It's like I know him as my little brother.
Yeah.
The dude who, you got to tell him to tie his fucking shoes every now and then. Now he's like making music with Soulja Boy and fucking Freeway, who's a Philadelphia legend. It's like, all right, I get it. I guess you're a real legit rapper. I guess I can get on that bandwagon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. It's just knowing who you are, what you can offer, and maximizing on it.
Right. Lean into your strengths.
Yeah. And it's not to say like you need to have the best equipment either. When I started on YouTube, I had it was like a $10 microphone. It was like a $30 camera that I was using. But what I didn't do is maximize my effort to utilize that equipment to its potential. Right. Like I just plugged and played, which you can only plug and play with expensive stuff. If you have the cheaper equipment, you need to learn how to modify it. You need to learn how to edit it, put it through, like your audio? Like if you have, you guys need to learn your editing equipment, right? You don't also need to pay for any audio editing equipment. Now the ones you pay for may be a little user friendly. So then you also have to determine more time to learning. But you have like Audacity, which is going to help edit your audio. You can clean it up. You can put EQ in it, highs and lows, make it sound better. I can get like I said, a $10 microphone, create audio, put it into Audacity, and then make it sound better than what it is. But now you have to put in that time. And then for video editing, you don't have to go with Adobe. You don't have to go with like Final Cut Pro or anything like that. You have DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve has a free editing software. You just have to learn how to use it.
Right.
So, there are options for free. You don't have to pay for the top shelf stuff. You have to learn how to use the free shit. It's free. They're not going to make it super easy. Here's what it is. Yeah. You got to put in the time to learn it.
But yeah, man, that's really all I had for today, bro. I figured this one would be kind of easy for us to go through and give the people some value.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has the potential to do something if you put the effort into it. It's just, how much do you want it? And then also like not being afraid to get judged.
Yeah.
Like we said.
Yeah.
You're literally putting your thoughts into the world and being, hey, do you like what I said? Right? You know what I mean?
And if you get a no, it's just a fucking no.
It's a no.
Yeah.
You know, like we share clips all the time where, like we said, we get negative feedback. We may share a clip that gets 1,000 or 1,500 views with 20 likes and no comments. And now you're like, oh man, that sucks. You know what I mean? But then you got to work past that part. Like, why do you think 1,000 or 1,500 people skipped out on those clips?
Right.
Was it not relatable? Did it just not seem visually appealing? Did it start off too slow that they just kept on moving? It's just shit like that you have to think of. Don't just be like, oh, that's, this performed poorly. Keep it moving. Now I'm sad. No. Why did it perform poorly?
Yeah.
What can I improve to make it more engaging? So it's shit like that you got to think about all the time.
Word. The whole boosting thing. Like, we got advice to do that pretty early on. But I've noticed that type of marketing, like investing a couple dollars or whatever in IG to promote your reels and stuff, that stuff is cool when you have something that's for sure a hit. Like, I don't think, looking back now on the success that we've had with it, that I would boost everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, certain clips that I know, like, people enjoy, or it's going to draw attention and the type of crowd that we want to our actual podcast. That's the kind of stuff that I would boost. So don't just go throwing money at the at your content thinking that the money is going to change everything, because it's not. Sometimes shit is better than the other shit that you're doing, and that's what you should put your money behind.
Yes, sir. No, this was fun. I mean, being able to go back and recap the last few months to see where we started and where we are and what we've learned and what we're going to keep on, doing to keep it growing. But it's all on us. There's nobody else, you know what I mean?
Real shit.
It's just me and you.
And it's up from here. So
if it's up, then it's stuck. This is the Mancave podcast.
Yo, I appreciate you, bro. We did our thing today. Appreciate y'all for watching, following, listening, wherever you are, however you get your podcasts. It's much appreciated.
Yep.
And me and George, we're going to work on some stuff and figure out how we can make this shit 10x.
Yep.
Take it to the next level. But in the meantime, be safe. Pay your taxes.
Yeah. I don't think that's important. That's a joke. Please don't come after me. IRS is going to fucking take me out.
Dead ass.